Yo, what is going on YouTube? I am Germ here. Today we have some big news coming out of the LCS that we are going to be talking about. Today we're talking all about Jensen, who, flashing back to this last offseason, was a big piece of a lot of different things that were going on. Obviously, he ended up getting replaced by Bjergsen on Team Liquid and ended up teamless, but there was rumors and even confirmation about him considering a role swap to AD carry, and then people being like, oh, but then Hans Sama became available, or oh, whatever was going on. But in this video today, we're going to be talking about from Jensen himself, how this offseason went, how he ended up getting replaced from Team Liquid, how he ended up teamless, how he ended up back on Cloud9, all that stuff, because we get some really great insight into what actually went down this offseason, and we get to hear the truth, again, from the man himself. But first, a word from today's sponsor, which is, of course, Prize Picks. This is the easiest and fastest way to play daily fantasy sports because your time is valuable. Obviously, this is something that is an awesome thing. Pick over or under on player props to win up to 10x your cash. You can play now on the website. You can get it in the Apple App Store, or you can get it today on the Google Play Store as well. They offer big payouts, 24/7 live support, and fast and secure withdrawals. They offer all different kinds of games, traditional sports, all different kinds of esports, LOL esports, LCS, LEC, LPL, LCK, all the different leagues, all the different events. They have a great selection of games. So if you guys want to get started, if you guys want to go check them out, check out the first link in the description below, where on your first deposit for new users, Prize Picks is actually going to match you up to $100, so you can get started, with a little extra cash to go around, which is going to be really awesome. So thank you so much to them for supporting me, my channel, and my content. Hopefully you guys check them out. With that being said, let's get right into this. What we're talking about today is this interview from Invin Global. RIP Invin Global. I don't know if they're shutting down. I don't know if I know they laid off and fired a bunch of people. Nick Garrissey, he's done a really great job with them. He's had a ton of awesome interviews. He's gotten a ton of awesome content out. I know that he's no longer with them, but we're going back in time a little bit. This is from July 1st of 2022. I've had this on my radar for a little bit, but we're making so much content. We're making so many videos. Some stuff has to get put on the back burner for a day where, there's maybe not as much craziness going on. We've had a ton of TSM drama, all that stuff recently. So the story got pushed back a little bit, but still, it's as relevant as ever. It's still spicy as ever, and I haven't heard as many people talking about it. So this is an interview with Jensen. Jensen, on peak versus current form, I'm definitely not where I want to be by any means. But again, this was 3 weeks ago. Things have changed since then. So, they're asking a lot of questions about how things were going with C9 at the time. But again, none of this is super relevant. But we do get into the past off-season stuff. This stuff is relevant. This stuff is spicy. And this is, again, we hear the rumors, we hear the speculation, we hear from sources, but getting to hear from the players themselves is always really appreciated, because I love when players are open, honest, transparent, but also it, hopefully peels away a lot of the bullshit. Now, hey, players are just giving their side of the story. It's still possible there's more to the story. There's somebody else's side. Maybe there's information they didn't totally know about. Obviously, there's conversations behind the scenes that they're not involved in. Who knows? But this is Jensen's side of what went down this offseason. So Nick asked him, after Worlds of 2021, were there any specific goals you had in mind for the 2022 season? Again, Team Liquid went to Worlds last year. Jensen was the best performing Western mid laner at Worlds. He was one of the best performing mid laners really in the tournament. He looked really good. And Team Liquid was just a single game away, a tiebreaker game away from getting out of groups at Worlds. So I'm sure Jensen thought, hey, our team just did decent. I did really good. How can we level it up for next year? Let's go, guys. I'm sure he didn't envision a single world where he was teamless going into 2022 after 2021 Worlds. But he says, and then they ask, how did you end up without a starting spot? He says, after we lost at Worlds, my goal was to build the most competitive roster that we could field on Team Liquid. That's when I decided that I should role swap to AD carry, because it seemed like there were no good AD carries available, and we wanted to move on from Tactical. So again, it seems like right after Worlds, they already knew Tactical was not going to be the guy. It's not like, hey, Hans Sama became available, so we're swapping out Tactical for Hans Sama. It was, hey, Tactical, you're gone. What are we doing at AD carry? What is going on here? Obviously, that's how Tactical ends up at TSM, and now maybe out of the LCS entirely. Who knows? Tactical has not really looked the same without Core JJ. There's a whole lot of different things going on there. But they needed an AD carry. Didn't seem like there were any good ones available, which I think is interesting because, yeah, Hans Sama wasn't a free agent. He became available, but, like, Reckless was available, Carzy was available. Like there were some big names out there that were actually available. Now maybe those guys were too expensive, maybe those guys weren't willing to come to the LCS, to North America. I don't really know for sure, but yeah, Hans Sama was not expected to be available. Again, he was coming off a pretty good Worlds with Rogue. He was still under contract, all this stuff. but there were some names out there. I wonder who Team Liquid's other options were if Hansama wouldn't have popped up. But Jensen goes on to say, I thought that because no one was available that I could fill the spot and we could find a mid laner that is close to me in skill, which would have been the best improvement overall. I thought I would maybe be more suited for the AD carry role. That's kind of how the offseason went. But then I think Core kind of got cold feet about me swapping. So again, we've heard that Jensen was scrimming. We've heard that Jensen was playing AD carry. And then obviously, he didn't end up as AD carry for Team Liquid. He didn't end up as an AD carry at all. So some people were like, oh, maybe Jensen didn't like AD carry. Maybe Jensen sucked at AD carry. Maybe he started playing it and was like, oh, I need to go back to the mid lane. This isn't for me, anything like that. It sounds like that's not what happened. It sounds like Jensen was actually really, really down to roll swap. It sounds like he might even to this day believe that he could be in better AD carry than mid laner, that his playstyle, his skill set, his everything might be better suited for AD carry, but in the current state of mid lane, especially in the LCS, there's not that many great mid laners. And yeah, it would be hard if he goes to AD carry. There's going to be a big downgrade in the mid lane position. So, hey, it can't really work out. It sounds like, at least from Jensen's perspective, from Jensen's point of view, that Core JJ was the one who kind of shut this down. Core JJ was like, I don't know about all this. Maybe it was because Core didn't think Jensen was good. Maybe Core thought this was a little bit too crazy to pull off. Or maybe Core was like, hey, we should maybe look at some other people too. Or maybe Core knew something. Maybe Core knew Hansama was going to become available. Maybe Core knew something else was going on. I don't know. But yeah, Jensen is making it sound like he was down. And Core is maybe the one that felt a little uncertain about it. Core was maybe the one that backed out. Maybe Core didn't like playing with him. Maybe Core thought he wasn't going to be good. I don't know for sure. He says at the same time, it was when TL made a deal with Bjergsen. So everything kind of went south for me. I was left without a position. I wish I could have found a team. But when I found out, it was already pretty late in the offseason. I had a buyout, which didn't make things easier. So I definitely felt a bit fucked over in that regard. I guess that's esports for you. He asked, hey, do you think you could have figured something out without the contract buyout? He says, I mean, there were teams that showed a lot of interest, but they didn't want to commit to the buyout. So it definitely played a big role, because you got to remember, Jensen at that time, probably still now, had a very large contract. His salary was big, and his buyout was reportedly pretty big as well. So yeah, it sounds like there was a lot of interest, probably from LEC and LCS teams, but they weren't biting on that buyout. And he actually goes as far to say this is interesting. He said, it's hard for me to say what really happened because I couldn't be a part of the conversation, so I'm not fully sure. I was told by at least Jack, talking about Cloud9 Jack, that if there was no buyout, things could have been different. It sucked, but I guess I have to move on. And that is huge. Jensen in this interview is saying that if he did not have a buyout, or if Team Liquid would have waived his buyout sooner, because again, the offseason went, and then TL ended up releasing Jensen. They ended up waiving his buyout. Jensen was in a free agent. He went to Cloud9. Cloud9 did not pay a buyout for him. If TL would have waived his buyout sooner, Jensen could have been on Cloud9 in the spring split. How would that have looked? I don't know. Would Summit have ever came to C9? How would that have worked? Because they had Summit, Fudge, Jensen, all these different people going on. Would Jensen have maybe played AD carry for Cloud9 with Fudge mid lane and Summit top? I don't know. Obviously, LS would have been in the whole situation. Berserker, all these different things. I don't know exactly how that would have looked, but it sounds like C9 was interested in Jensen, and he could have been there, which is another big thing. So two huge things coming out of this story. They ask him, hey, you weren't the only star affected by this offseason. Do you think there's anything specific that contributed to this? He's like, I know what happened to top players from other teams too, like Niski. I don't really know if there's a solution. It's due to contracts. Contracts usually favor the orgs. They obviously decide what they want to do. I know people say, why don't you just sign or make a better contract? But it's not really that simple. That's just how esports is, I guess. They said, hey, especially when you're talking about millions of dollars, he's like, yeah, I don't really know what the solution is. Anyone can be fucked over, but it was hard for me to see it coming. I thought there was no one better than me, so I guess it wasn't really something I prepared for properly. And yeah, for sure, like I said, the season Jensen was coming off of, and just the player he is, the reputation he has, the brand he has, who would have ever thought that he was going to end up teamless, especially with how weak mid lane is in the LCS, and again, how good he looked just at the most recent tournament. You want to talk about what have you done for me lately? He was looking in some of the best form of his entire career. So yeah, super, super crazy. But also understand, if this can happen to Jensen, then yeah, it can happen to any player in the LCS. Maybe there's like Bjergsen who this can't happen to. But other than him, who maybe Core and Bjergsen probably aren't going to get fucked over, but it seems like anyone else, is absolutely on the table. He said, I guess that's just how most, if not all, contracts are, but I've made changes so I won't have a similar thing happen to me again in the future. I'm definitely more prepared for the future now if something bad were to happen. So does that mean he doesn't have a buyout in his current contract? Does that mean he has clauses in place to protect him from certain things? I don't know for sure, but it sounds like Jensen is better prepared for the future now. Hopefully he got a good agent, good representation, got a good contract, all that stuff. He said, I would assume you made changes means that you made sure certain things were included in a new contract. He says, yes, exactly. And he asked, hey, did you speak to any other players that were in similar situations about this? Jensen says, no, not really. I pretty much keep to myself. But yeah, obviously there was, Team McDonald's is a big meme in this offseason. We saw Jensen, Niski, now even like Self-Made, all these different guys, Sven, not having teams to play on, even despite the fact that they are definitely LCS and LEC level talent. You have Jizuke, guys like that as well. So yeah, contracts, money, it's all super, super weird in both the LEC and LCS right now. It's an absolute shame. You want your best players playing in the league. Reckless didn't even end up, in the LEC. So it's really crazy. But yes, Jensen thought probably still thinks he might be an AD carry player. Sounds like Core JJ wasn't totally down. And it sounds like we could have got C9 Jensen a lot sooner if there was no Team Liquid buyout. So pretty crazy stuff. A lot of big updates. I wanted to get this out to you guys because, again, it's not every day you get to hear from the player themselves about how an offseason went all the way down. But that's pretty much it for this video today, guys. Definitely drop a like if you did enjoy it. I would appreciate that so much. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you guys think about anything we talked about in today's video. I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions. Subscribe, stay up to date on all my latest content. Consider checking out Prize Picks. First link in the description below. Consider checking out Discord. Second link in the description below. Hopefully catch you guys in the next one. But until then.